Today on Rant, there's a new subspecies of human being, and they're on the rise. I'm talking about the dangerous idiot. Dangerous idiots have most probably always walked among us. I suspect Darwin's theory of evolution assisted in keeping them under control historically. Of course, in the olden days, you generally needed to be a scientist or a doctor, for example, to comment on science or medicine.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that? By injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
That was, of course, the world's leading dangerous idiot, Donald Trump, in his daily White House press briefing recently. He actually speculated out loud that it might be worthwhile to investigate injecting sick patients with disinfectant as a potential coronavirus cure. And it seems so obvious in hindsight, right? Problem, infection, solution, disinfection. That light bulb moment, yes. To be fair, he is an incredible genius with great strength and huge compassion, tremendous judgment and perfect health. But ever the self-deprecator, Mr. Trump was quick to point out,
You could, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. Again, I say maybe you can, maybe you can't. I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good you-know-what.
George W. Bush II must be seething. When he left office in 2009, I'm certain he felt quite confident indeed that he had dumbest president ever in the bag for decades to come. And then, out of nowhere, along comes Orange Man. Dettol Donny did not stop with disinfectant, of course. He offered a couple of additional and equally brilliant suggestions as to pathways for potential coronavirus cure. He's an ideas guy. Clearly.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. You ready? I hope people enjoy the sun, and if it has an impact, that's great. I'm just hearing this, not really for the first time. I mean, there's been a rumor that, a very nice rumor that you go outside in the sun or you have heat and it does have an effect on other viruses. But now we get it from one of the great laboratories of the world, I have to say. Covers a lot more territory than just this. This is probably an easy thing, relatively speaking, for you. I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure.
How about we go to camera 2 on that briefing? You're about to look at the face of Disinfectant Donny's White House Coronavirus Task Force leader as he speaks.
So, supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
64-year-old Deborah Birx there, a diplomat and medical doctor specialising in HIV/AIDS immunology, a former director of the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. A picture tells 1,000 words, I'd suggest. That ongoing struggle to retain composure. The disinfectant suggestion forced multinational giant Reckitt Benckiser, the company that makes Dettol and Lysol disinfectants, to issue an urgent press release warning ordinary people not to drink, inject, or otherwise introduce these products into their bodies. It's kind of hard to argue with that advice. As a global leader in health and hygiene products, we must be clear that under no circumstance should our disinfectant products be administered into the human body through injection, ingestion, or any other route. On one level, of course, it is kind of hilarious that the public actually needs this advice. Like, it's official, do not drink disinfectant. Is that where we're at? Because to me, this is in the domain of removing one's clothes before you iron them, you know? Don't use the hairdryer in the shower, and definitely don't dry the cat in the microwave. And on another level, it's the starkest of stark reminders that public office carries with it intrinsically a heavy burden of social responsibility, of respect for the facts and for the consequences of one's statements. But apparently that's optional now. The dumber you are, the easier it is to assume you are brilliant. It's a paradox. Hashtag Dunning-Kruger. If you want to know how a real leader reacts to this shit, here's Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland.
The responsibility in leaders is not to stand up in a public platform and repeat things that you have perhaps half heard and perhaps completely misunderstood, and present that to the public in a way that the public might act on and that could be dangerous. And none of us are perfect. We will all make mistakes in this, but I think we all have to remember that very serious responsibility when we're giving advice to the public. It must be good advice, informed by the best science. And as Jason has just said, it is clearly not the case that ingesting disinfectant in any way, shape or form is a good idea. It is a very, very bad idea and extremely dangerous.
Yeah, because the facts do still matter, and what powerful people say matters, because the apparatus of power amplifies their message in terms of both the volume and the perceived credibility. Mr. Trump actually said that introducing disinfectant into the human body as a potential therapy was a, quote, interesting idea, which warranted further investigation. In fact, it does not. Every doctor on earth, from Deborah Bricks down, would agree that the science is in on that one. You know, if you drink Dettol, your coronavirus problem will go away. That's a done deal, because you will be dead. I'd suggest it's hardly a cure. Trump's an easy target, I guess, too, because A, he's got the big job, B, everything he says is so widely reported and scrutinised, and C, he's a narcissistic moron. But he's certainly not the world's only dangerous idiot, okay? There's actually a thriving middle class of dangerous idiots, and I'm going to offer my hypothesis on what defines them scientifically in just a sec. I'd suggest it's easy to blame the internet for the rise in dangerous idiocy. Everyone gets a voice, which is kind of democratic, I guess, but it also allows dangerous idiots to oxygenate their absurd views with very few checks and balances. As an engineer, I cringe whenever I see some DIY dipshit on YouTube using an angle grinder one-handed after having removed both the safety guard and the stabilising handle while wearing inadequate personal protective equipment, using the wrong disc for the job, and standing in relation to the tool in a manner that ensures he's going to get hit by a dangerous ballistic projectile if anything goes wrong.
Now, I'm going to be using a grinder in this video without a guard, because that's the way I use the grinder. I normally wouldn't use a grinder with a guard because too often the guard gets in the way. And the fact is, I don't really need it.
Right there, okay, that is 1,000 different flavours of how not to use one of the most potentially dangerous tools money can buy right there, and the guy doing it has 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. The video from which that excerpt is taken is specifically an angle grinder how-to tutorial that's had nearly 500,000 views. So well done there, middle-class dangerous idiot. There are thousands of videos out there like this with thousands of dangerous idiots in thousands of different niches metastasizing their dangerous idiocy out to people who really do not know any better. It's not just the anti-vaxxers, the climate change deniers, the flat earthers, the fluoride in the water neurotoxin nut jobs, the moon landing conspiracy theorists, the fat acceptance community, and various other nuts cowering beneath the umbrellas of political correctness and social justice. Dangerous idiocy is prolific in mundane places like medical advice or driving or diet or exercise, even in the tool shed at home, as you just saw. It's not just the internet enabling this either, it's also the media. See, one of the reasons I stopped going on TV and radio was it's a breeding ground for dangerous idiots. Interview talent is no longer selected on the basis of who's got the best ideas. It's selected on the basis of who's a good talker and who can engage the audience. The broadcast mediums are systematically biased towards conflict and ratings, not social responsibility and/or accuracy. This, plus a lack of authenticity in the presentation, is the reason these mediums are dying. If you want to see an example of a dangerous idiot media codependency, okay, here in Shitsville, just watch Sky News, basically any evening. You're looking for Peter Credlin, Chris Kenny, Paul Murray, Andrew Bolt, Pauline Hanson, personal opinion, the high priests and priestesses of dangerous right-wing idiocy right there, preaching to a flock of would-be dangerous idiots in the audience who are simply too stupid to think for themselves. Some people criticise them, but I love them. I love it when these people attempt to tackle big, complex issues. Dangerous idiocy is entertaining superficially, but it's quite insidious also, deeper down. To me, the most worrying dimension of dangerous idiocy is that the facts are suddenly up for grabs, right? People feel empowered to debate scientific truth and objective facts like it's some friggin' talk show. Science, I'd suggest, is the one institution that means you and I are not living in caves today and routinely dying in our 20s. Science got 12 men to the moon and back. It cured smallpox and split the atom and enabled the microelectronics revolution, among other things. And yet, science has never been more doubted and debated by people who know absolutely nothing about it. Parents even tell their kids, "You are entitled to your opinion, darling," when actually you are not. You are entitled to an opinion only for which you can argue and which is supported by facts. These are vitally important caveats. So, here's my hypothesis on dangerous idiots. How do we define them scientifically? I'd suggest the defining characteristic of the dangerous idiot is that they believe they possess unique insight into a particular field, insight which experts have somehow overlooked. That's my working hypothesis anyway, and I would welcome your input on that in the comments below. Personally, I would not presume to insult the medical profession by asking some learned professor if perhaps he and his colleagues had considered a course of Drano injections as potential cures for anything, except maybe dangerous idiocy. Nor would I presume to insult the engineers who designed my angle grinder by removing the safety guard and the handle, etc. One of my most disliked videos on my other channel, with likes to dislikes running at 54%, so 46% of the audience hates it. That video debunks the nutbag notion that you should go out and electrolyse water in the engine bay of your car and pump the resulting hydrogen and oxygen gases into the engine as a means of dramatically improving fuel efficiency. The pro tip there, okay? I'm an engineer and that absolutely will not work because it would violate the second law of thermodynamics, and that's not allowed, basically. Supporting evidence on this includes all cars would come with such a system standard out of the factory if it actually worked. They don't, it does not, QED. And yet, I get endless uplifting hate and sundry, let's call them, interesting dissertations in the comments from amateur dangerous idiots who dislike having their dangerous idiocy on this debunked by the facts, which remain unequivocal, because facts don't give a shit how anyone feels about them. That's kind of important too. Popular criticisms include A, my formal training on this has somehow blinded me to the possibility of brilliant left field solutions, and B, I never tested it, so how the hell would I know anyway? It's quite interesting to me that understanding something in great detail can be an impediment. I find that fascinating. And on the testing thing, that's about as valid as suggesting to a physicist that jumping off the 5th floor balcony is safe provided you are wearing a red cape. Or, I don't know, telling a physician they're really not going to know about the therapeutic benefits of hand sanitizer injections until they actually give them a go. I mean, if Lysol turns out to be a miracle vaccine for coronavirus, as the president loosely speculated, I guess all they'll have to do then is figure out how to make it cause autism like all the other vaccines, and then we'll be able to deploy it worldwide and save the population. Yes. For complete disambiguation on this, vaccines do not cause autism. That was satire. Please try to keep up. Anyway, can you improve upon my definition that the dangerous idiot is that dude or dudette who believes they possess some unique insight into a particular field which experts have somehow overlooked? Do let me know in the comments feed below, and thank you very much for watching.